Tell me a little bit about hidden loyalties. I've heard you speak about them before, and I'm curious, does everyone have hidden loyalties?
Yeah, actually yes, we all do. For me, hidden loyalties is such an important topic. We have loyalties to belief systems, we have loyalties to our siblings, to our family members, to our ethnicity, to our religion, to our tribe, to our nation, to our grandparents, to so many different things. We have loyalties to groups of people that we don't even know. And so it starts with the ability to be happier than those who gave us life. Are we able to say, Mother, please bless me if I have the courage to be happier than you? Father, please smile upon me kindly if I have the courage to have more than you. So what happens if you are raised in a family and your brother or sister is disabled? Are you able to have, become and do more than that sibling? Dare you be happier than that individual? What if your ancestors were persecuted? What if your ancestors were slaves? Are you able to say to your ancestors, please bless me if I have the courage to thrive and to be happier than you? Or do you have to be loyal to the suffering? What if your grandparents survived the Holocaust or ran from the Russian pogroms? What if you are of indigenous blood and you come from a nation that has been colonized? What if you're from the so-called New World? What if you're from Argentina or Australia or New Zealand or Canada or the United States? One of those nations where the indigenous peoples were either massacred or have been marginalized or were wiped out by the diseases and the illnesses that came with the settlers that came, or just simply murdered. What if you're from one of those nations? Can you allow yourself to have it all and to allow your magnificence to shine, taking into consideration what has happened before? And so that can be equally true if it is the perpetrator that you are the grandchild of, or the descendant of, or the victim. In my work with individuals, through many years of doing ancestral healing and family constellation work, I've observed that it makes no difference. So if you are the descendant of the slave owner, you are just as likely to sabotage your own success through alcohol, through consistent bankruptcy, through drug taking, even through suicide, than you are if you are the descendant of the slaves. So in fact, the descendant of the slaves or the colonized, and the descendants of the slave owner or the colonizers share a very similar fate. Who carries the heavier burden? The grandchild of someone who worked at Auschwitz, or the grandchild of the one who survived Auschwitz? Who carries the greater burden? And in my experience, the burden is equally great. Making that statement may even get me into a lot of trouble. For a lot of people are really focused on making the victim far more important than the perpetrator. But what I'm here to say is that the after effects are really exponential. What happens to the soul of a nation that perpetrates such heinous acts upon other human beings? What happens to the soul of the colonizing nation that does this to indigenous peoples? We can see its effects on the British. Very often British people have this tendency to apologize for everything, for even their very existence. We see that all the time with perpetrator nations. And what we also see is that perpetrator nations were at one time a victim and enslaved. So the Roman Empire begat, yes, that's the better word. So the Roman Empire begat the French Empire, the British Empire, the Dutch Empire, the Spanish Empire, and so the cycle goes on. So the cycle stops when we realize our own loyalty. So, what if you're the child who got out? What if you're the child who got away? What if you were raised in poverty and you were able to climb out of the ghetto? So you may have all of the career success in the world, but lack the loving, intimate relationship. You may have the loving, intimate relationship, but lack the physical health. And so there will always be an area of lack that we don't allow. I am not allowed to have it all because my sister is still left behind in the ghetto. My brother is in the mental hospital. My parents suffered so much in order to give to me. I dare not have more than them. I dare not be happier than them. I may not have the love of my life because my mother's husband died, or my mother was so disappointed in her own husband, and out of loyalty to her, I will have less. I will have all the money, but I won't have the husband. I will have the great career, but I won't have the children. And so we limit ourselves through loyalties that somehow believe that it dishonors and disrespects those who have suffered. That's what happens. So it behooves us to look at what is really required. When we're loyal to the suffering of others, what happens? It simply begets more suffering. And how does it stop? When we're loyal to, let's say, the hatred of a family, what does that beget? And so generations of people can grow up hating another group of people for no other reason than that's what their parents did, and their grandparents, and the great-grandparents before that. We've seen that in Europe between Catholics and Protestants. We see that between Christians and Muslims. We see that between black people and white people. We see that between all sorts of groups of people. We see all of these divisions where the hatred is just simply inherited without being questioned. And that is the destructive element of loyalty. And that's very clear and obvious for most people to see. Hey, I'm buying into the hatred of my parents and my grandparents, between, let's say, Serbs and Croats, for example, or between Christians and Muslims and white people and black people. There are all sorts of groups that have hatred towards one another. I'm not talking about all Christians and all Muslims, but there are groups within these general groupings that hold this automatic hatred towards these other people. You know, oh no, we don't talk to the blue-eyed people. No. They're from the left foot tribe. We don't talk to them, without even knowing who they are. So on some level, that's pretty obvious, that those kinds of loyalties are destructive and unhealthy. But what I'm really talking about are the loyalties of the child to its parents. Because what's wrapped up in that? If I'm loyal to my mother's sadness, or loyal to her depression, and become sad and depressed just like her, in a very distorted way, I'm close to her. And then there's a hope that I'm going to get what I wanted, to merge, to be brought into her heart, to have that experience of merging love. Mhm. If I'm loyal to my father's anger at these people or that person, then I get to be close to him. And so we can be very loyal to the suffering of mother and father, of grandparents, and of our ancestors. And so what happens if you come from a marginalized group of people? Let's say you're from an ethnic minority. We can be loyal to the ghetto. In some circles, it is frowned upon to be successful, to step into your magnificence, because then, then you're just imitating those people that suppressed us. Because remember, they were the ones with all the power and the money. And so if you go after power and money, or what looks like power and money, then you're just trying to be like them. You're one of them now. In many countries where brown people or black people are the minority, these disparaging terms are born, such as, now you're a coconut, white on the inside, brown on the outside. It is ridiculousness. And so it is about loyalty. What loyalty is healthy and what loyalty is unhealthy. Any loyalty that minimizes who you are and restricts who you want to become, and restricts your own magnificence and restricts your own life force energy, that is unhealthy. A lot of this can be simply being loyal to the needs of a parent. I hear so many times people describing their mother or their father as their best friend. And the question is a friendship healthy? Because if that's your best friend, then you don't have a mother. And what I will often find is loyalty to her or his unhappiness. And that begins to restrict many, many things. So we'll have the career, but not the relationship. Or we'll have the relationship and not the health. And so these are the main areas of health, wealth, happiness, love. And we will snuff one of those out because we cannot have more than her or than him or those ancestors. Look at how many people suffered so that I may thrive. Well, that's the point. You are thriving. Because fate is a much bigger picture. All of us, every single one of us, is alive because these greater movements of fate created the circumstances of our life. And so if you're a mixed-raced individual, then this greater fate of wars between nations and colonization actually led to who you are. And so saying no to all of that is in denial of who you are. I myself, I'm from mixed heritage. And so I am a product of the wheels of fate. And yes, others suffered because of that. But if I minimize my life and dim my light because of that suffering of others, then it makes all of those movements, all of that surviving that they did, for nothing. I know to the depth of my being that my ancestors want me to thrive, despite everything that they went through. Not to suffer out of honor for them. It's a misplaced honor. And in fact, it's rather arrogant. We make ourselves far too important. I have a lot more to say about this.
Thank you.